We are called to be a community of people on a mission, delighting in God, redeemed and reconciling the world, bringing them, inviting them into this family. You and I aren't going to be everybody's closest friend. And the people that you reach out to this summer as part of our Loving God and Loving Neighbor initiative may become deep friends and long-term friends over time. Robin Dunbar has done extensive research on the impact of friendships in our lives, and it turns out that friendship has the biggest impact on happiness, health, and even mortality risk outside of just about anything except giving up smoking. Robin Dunbar has also popularized the notion that most of us have a capacity for about 150 friendships with people. Think the size of your Christmas card list. 150 is the number of people that most of us can reasonably manage to keep up with and socially interact with. And most of the 150 people will be people you see or talk to once or two times a year. It turns out there's layers to our relationships and friendships based on how much time we spend with one another. Acquaintances will make up most of the people on your list. As we go a bit deeper and spend more time with some folks more than others, they're the 15 to 20 people who are part of our village. People we spend time with on a regular basis. People who are connected to us in an ongoing way. Our villages are diverse and unique to each of us. And most people have the capacity for 2 to 5 close friends. This is why many people are seeking, and it takes time, a lot of time to develop close friendships. And all of them, the acquaintance, the village, the close friends, are related to one another. Dunbar's number provides some perspective for congregations, especially why so many congregations are small and the majority of congregations have less than 200 people. Why? Because people find it comfortable when they feel like they know everyone in the congregation. Even if each person isn't part of our village of 15 to 20, we get the sense of knowing people. And people like being known by someone when they show up. For congregations to grow beyond 200 people, all of us have to give up the notion that we'll know everyone who is here. At some point, we just exhaust our limit. People like being known by people around them who show up. Loving God and loving our neighbor begins by showing up. One of the ways and places we show up is to love God, for example, is worship. When we want God to be more present in our lives, it helps to show up in the places God promises to be present. A regular feature of our worship at St. John's is celebrating the sacrament of communion together. It's a place God promises to be present. It is the body and blood of Jesus Christ. And it's shared with people present for worship. It's literally taking a piece of God into our bodies and by extension our lives. When God is present in our lives, it makes taking what God is doing seem more straightforward. The direction Jesus sends the disciples in the gospel is toward people. It's a physical movement to go to the place people are. The Great Commission in the Gospel of Matthew begins, "Go, make disciples." Go means moving toward people. Go is part of connecting and initiating relationships. The Great Commission says not a single word about waiting around in a group for people to show up to find you and to find me. Jesus asks us to go find others. Now that you've been taking notice of the people around you for a couple of weeks, it's time to take the next faithful step. To view the people around you, the folks you notice, as friends in the making. Now, making a friend from a person we barely know takes time. Remember, our lives reflect our stewardship, including how we use our time. When we invest our time in relationship building with other people, we are more likely to have friends and grow our village, and less likely to experience loneliness and isolation. In order to develop friends, we need to develop the habit and practice of initiating and inviting. Overwhelmingly, people will be glad you ask. You notice them, even if they can't join you for a walk at the moment. Because invitations are powerful. Over time, they transform our lives as we become people who invite and get good at building relationships with others. The goal of the Great Commission is Jesus' call to move toward people, to get to know our neighbors, to love them. It's okay if everyone you meet and invite into your life this summer doesn't become one of your 5 closest friends. After all, if we're only going to have 5 close friends, that means it won't be everybody we know. Even the 12 disciples are more the size of a village of people. The point is to start and to follow the Spirit's nudge and Jesus' call to go. All right, good morning, Marilyn. You have one of the most fascinating tales someone's ever told me about their baptism, about how your mom didn't want you to be baptized by the new pastor. Can you tell us what happened?
I was born just as our pastor was going to another church, and we were getting this kid fresh out of seminary, and my parents didn't want my baptism kept, for him, so I was baptized in the parsonage before I think it was Pastor Lack, but I'm not sure, left. Well, this kid fresh out of the seminary was George Harkins, who eventually became head of the ELCA, or LCE, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I would have been his first baptism, but my parents didn't want to let me do that.
Very good. So after your baptism, what are your earliest memories of faith in church?
I guess sitting in church, we had a nursery, so I don't know what age when I began to sit in church with my parents. But I remember I would get a little antsy, and for the last hymn, I would always be calculating how much more of the hymn we had to go. Most hymns were 4 lines and four verses, so I was going by 16ths. I guess that's why I became a math teacher.
Very good. And when you were growing up, you were a reacher. You told me one time. Can you tell the folks what that was about when you were a youth?
High school.
High school.
Yes, there was something called Reachers for the Central Penn Synod of the Central Penn Conference of the East Pennsylvania Synod of the LCEA. It was before what we had now. And Reachers were relay evangelism and Christian help for the Luther League. And we would go on a Sunday morning, we would go to these different Luther Leagues that had asked us to come. And we'd go to the morning service, and then we'd eat in one of the family's homes, and then we'd meet with the leaders of the Luther League that afternoon, and then we'd put on a Luther League service that evening to show them how you can get kids interested in coming, and we'd sing songs, and my song to sing was Head, Shoulders, Knees and Toes, which I did when I was more limber, and it was fun. Then we go back in the evenings, and I'm not sure. I guess people drove us back and forth, but I know at one time one of the girls in our troop was from a place called Halifax, which was north of Harrisburg, and whoever was taking us got us to my house, and my father had to take this girl up to Halifax home, which was a good half an hour, 45-minute drive up. But that was okay, because that's on the way to where my grandparents lived anyway, because we knew the car could go that way by himself.
That's great. What is the most meaningful or memorable gift you've ever received?
I don't know. I guess one Christmas soon after my divorce, our parents decided to give each of their 3 daughters $500. And my other 2 sisters, who were much older and more settled than I was, really got mad at my parents for giving away the money. But when they gave it to me, I started to cry because I was recently divorced, I was back teaching, we needed a new stove, and I didn't think we had money for it, but I could now buy my new stove.
Wow.
So I guess that was the most meaningful gift I ever got.
That's great. I recall you telling me at one time you spent some time away from church after your divorce. And so how did you end up coming back? What was that like?
Well, I stopped coming to church because every time I would come, I'd start crying, and I didn't know why I was crying. I didn't want to sit in the pew and just cry like a baby. So I just stopped coming, thinking I'll outgrow it, but then you get out of habits. And I was teaching with Donna Breslin's son. And Donna had been after me, when are you going to come back to church? And Carolyn I met in the grocery store one day and said, why don't you come back to church? And Donna's son said to her, Mrs. Matthews is retiring. I used to use the excuse that I can't come back on Sundays because that's when I plan my lessons for the week. And Donna's son said, Mrs. Matthews is retiring. She no longer has an excuse. So Donna called me and said, I'm going to pick you up. We're going to go to church. And the rest is history.
That's great. Marilyn, do you have a favorite Bible story or hymn that's particularly meaningful to you?
I think it's probably, I don't know one, it's a little bit of one where, suffer the little children to come unto me, because I think we need to take care of our children. And as a teacher, I have seen the results of some bad parenting, and that has bothered me.
Okay. All right. If you could turn back time now, what is something you would say now to your younger self, or you wish someone would have told you when you were younger, that you realize now is important?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know. Maybe not be so afraid of doing things, but life comes along and you just keep plugging away at it.
Yeah.
I have thought many times about my divorce. Could I have done anything differently? But I really don't think I could have.
Yeah.
And my ex-husband grew up across the street from me, and I had a crush on him since 9th grade. I said I got back at him by marrying him, but.
All right, very well. How do you hope your friends and family remember you?
As someone who was willing to help and tried to do the best, and was comfortable to be with.
Yeah. Great. Who do you want the church to thrive and survive for?
Excuse me?
Who do you want the church to survive for?
Who?
Yeah. Are there people or types of people or communities of people?
Just everybody. I think we need to try to spread more of kindness and cooperation and acceptance, which right now is, I think, in certain places is very scarce.
Yeah.
And we just need to try to get that more worldwide.
Yeah. More kindness, more acceptance sounds very good.
Not to be political, but a kinder, gentler nation.
Yes, yeah. Well, thank you, Marilyn, for sharing with us today. Appreciate it.